Hello, it's Alex, the Bookubus. Today I'm going to be talking about some Dell Abyss horror books. Abyss was a line of horror fiction published by Dell. It was launched in 1991. Its purpose was to showcase something different from the classic tropes that had become overused within the genre by that point throughout the 1970s and 80s. So yeah, by the early 90s, people were wanting something different. The first book published in the Abyss line was The Cipher by Kathe Koja, which no doubt you've heard me talk about, and I'll definitely be talking about it again in this video. And there were a total of 40-something titles that were published in the Abyss line. I will leave some links below if you want to go check them out. I'm not sure exactly how accurate they are because I know in at least one of the lists it has Skin by Kathe Koja, and I'm pretty sure that was published by Dell but wasn't published as part of Abyss, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. Anyway, out of the 40-something titles, I have so far read 11 of them, and I wanted to talk to you about them today. I have rated 2 of them 3 stars, 5 of them 4 stars, and 4 of them 5 stars. And if you know my track record with 5-star ratings, then you will know that is pretty damn good going. So maybe you've heard about Dell Abyss, but you haven't read any, you don't know which ones to try. Well, don't you worry, I got you. And have I ever let you down yet? So I'm going to start off with the 3-star books. These definitely weren't bad. They were good. They just weren't my favourites. So we'll start off with Nightlife by Hodge, which was published in 1991. When a ruthless drug lord steals a secret drug known as skull flesh from the warrior priests of an ancient Venezuelan mountain people, he unleashes a terrifying nightmare on his thrill-seeking, unwitting customers in the nightclubs of Florida. What an amazing premise. And yeah, I was very intrigued by the promise of 90s nightlife and the drug culture and shape-shifting. What a combination. And it does have some of those elements, but I don't know, I just wanted more of them. There wasn't enough of all of that for me. And so yeah, that was why it just ended up being good rather than great. But if it sounds interesting to you, I would still recommend checking it out. And I would definitely still check out more by this author. Next up is The Making of a Monster by Gail Petersen, which was published in 1993. Kate had come to LA a conventional woman in a conventional marriage, but when the neglected housewife meets a handsome stranger in an acting class, she crosses over to the other side of the angels, the deathless side. Transformed by her lover into an immortal, Kate prowls the streets of Hollywood with the need for blood. So yeah, the main character here gets turned into a vampire, but she is then abandoned by the vampire that turned her, so she's having to figure out this new life all by herself. And I do remember the existential and psychological aspects of that being really well done. And some of the story also involves the LA music scene, which is interesting because the author was actually in a band back in the day, the Catholic Girls. And yeah, I think this was just another element that I wanted more of and didn't quite get. So overall, it was still a good read. And yeah, if you like vampire novels, then why not check this one out? Okay, moving on to the 4-star books. So yeah, anything from here on out, I would heartily recommend. And I'm not ranking them. I suck at ranking, apparently, so we're just going to go alphabetical order by author name. So that means first up is Grave Markings by Michael Arnzen, which was published in 1994. Living in pain, an insane, egomaniacal tattoo artist is obsessed with the mad images in his mind and the need for recognition. So he seeks new flesh to fulfill his ambition until his art becomes death itself. So we have these dead bodies that are turning up with all of these crazy tattoos on them, and we're following a journalist character who is investigating this story, and then we're also following this specific tattoo artist, and we really get inside his head, into his past trauma and things that have shaped him and are maybe making him do what he's doing. And yeah, I remember this one had some pretty gnarly and gruesome scenes, which were brilliant. And yeah, this was just a wild ride that I really enjoyed. I thought the fact that it was set within the world of tattooing and artistry was really interesting. And yeah, I have actually met the author at StokerCon a couple of years ago, and he was an absolute sweetheart, such a nice guy. It was so cool to meet him. And yeah, I definitely need to read more by him. Next up is XY by Michael Blumlein, originally published in 1993. The world of Frankie, a stripper, is turned upside down when a mysterious man walks into her club and a siren goes off and Frankie wakes up the next morning as a man. Honestly, like, I'm not exactly sure what the book was trying to say on that whole thing, but I still really enjoyed it. The author is actually a doctor working in the medical field, so that was really interesting to read a piece of horror fiction from someone with that knowledge, and there are some medical references cited throughout the novel, which, yeah, it's kind of interesting. The character of Frankie is dating a guy named Terry, and yeah, as the story goes on, the dynamic in their relationship changes, and yeah, there are some like magical elements involved, and then also, yeah, some kind of disturbing relationship dynamic things that play out, especially towards the end. So this one is one that you kind of have to be a bit patient with, at least I found, but I thought it was worth it. And yeah, it was definitely an odd one, probably won't be for everyone, but I thought it was great. Next up is Shadowman by Dennis Etchison. We've got a little bit of step back art here. Ooh, spooky. And this one is Shadowman by Dennis Etchison, which was published in 1993. And I couldn't find a short synopsis for this one, so yeah, it's about a small coastal town where some children have gone missing, and there is an urban legend about someone or something called the Shadowman. So I actually just read this recently and finished it a few days ago, and it was excellent. It's the second novel by this author that I've read this year. I also read the Videodrome novelisation that he wrote, and that was amazing. So I was very excited to read more by him, and this one did not disappoint. The setting of this like moody and foggy coastal town was wonderful, super atmospheric. There are some really unsettling scenes that play out throughout the story. And yeah, we're following a few different characters who become involved in these, missing children, some of whom are turning up dead, and yeah, what exactly is behind this. This one does go to some dark places as well. It is quite disturbing at its core. So yeah, and obviously if you're not wanting to read horror fiction involving children, then I'd avoid it. But I just loved the vibe of this one. I thought it was great. There were some really wonderful details and descriptions. Another author that I look forward to reading more by. Next is Tunnelvision by R. Patrick Gates, published in 1991. What do you see when your vision narrows to a single point? What do you miss? In an ordinary American city, a swirling dance of death and depravity unfolds around you. A neglected young prodigy glimpses it. A cop, struggling with his own unspeakable legacy, tries to pinpoint the cause. And somewhere, a killer's head teems with lurid images that fill his days and possess his nights. He has discovered the power and glory of tunnel vision and found just how real living hell can get. So this is another one that involves horrible things happening to children. Like, this one is like pretty much the worst things that you could imagine happening to children. I probably don't have to say exactly what that might be, so avoid if that is not something you want to encounter. This one is dark and disturbing. But yeah, this one follows these three characters mentioned in the synopsis. We have this cop character who is a bit of a cliche, but I still thought he was well written. Then there's this kid character who was amazing. I loved him so much. And then we have this third character who, the scenes involving him are written so well and they're so evocative, and he basically like sees things as though they're on a TV and the channels are changing. It was fascinating, and just very weird and dark, and I thought it was brilliant. I don't hear anyone talking about this one, but I think it really does deserve more people checking it out. If you're looking for something messed up, then I would recommend this one. Okay, next up and last of the 4-star reads is Prodigal by Melanie Tem, which was published in 1991. Following her brother Ethan's brutal kidnapping and murder, 12-year-old Lucy loses her hold on the real world and begins seeing apparitions of her dead brother, and is soon drawn to the evil force that took his life. So another one involving horrible things happening to children, basically. So yeah, I don't know. There's a few here that aren't going to be for everyone. This one is a slow burn and it is somewhat ambiguous, but I remember really enjoying the writing style. It is told from a child's perspective, so that might be another thing that isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I thought it was really well done. Like I said, this one is a slow burn, but I found it really interesting and compelling, and yeah, just a bit different. So another one I would recommend checking out. Okay, so we're moving on to the 5-star reads now, and kicking off with Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite, originally published in 1992. Another one that has a super long synopsis. So to paraphrase, we're following a couple of characters who are in a band, and they are traveling from North Carolina to New Orleans. And there is also a group of vampires who are in search of new flesh, of course. This one is a classic. It's a classic of vampire fiction. It's a classic of 90s horror fiction. It's a classic of queer horror fiction. And yeah, I read this as a teenager and loved it, and I reread it a few years ago and still loved it. I really enjoy the journey elements of the story, which are both literal journeys and emotional journeys. The characters are all really wonderful and so well written, and yeah, the prose is gorgeous. And the author does not shy away from the sex and violence and yeah, all of the bloody vampire stuff. But yeah, the prose is really wonderful, which is like my favourite combination of things, honestly. So yeah, would highly recommend this one if you've never read it. Next up is The Cipher by Kathe Koja, originally published in 1991. And yeah, what an amazing cover, and then the step back art, sorry for the glare, but yikes, amazing. Okay, so when a strange hole materialises in a storage room, would-be poet Nicholas and his feral lover Nakota allow their curiosity to lead them into the depths of terror. This is probably one of my favourite horror novels ever. I read this a few years ago and immediately fell in love with Kathe Koja's writing style. It is very unique and poetic, and not for everyone, it seems, but it's definitely for me. The characters are unlikable, which also isn't for everyone apparently. But yeah, there are some dark and disturbing things that play out as these two characters become obsessed with this hole, and the things that they put in the hole that come back transformed in some way, and how that affects their lives and their relationship. Yeah, this one is just weird and I love it so much. 5 stars all day. And next is another Kathe Koja. This one is Bad Brains, which was published in 1992. Another amazing cover with just absolutely mental step back art. So good. Still reeling from his divorce, would-be painter Austin takes a fall in a 7-Eleven parking lot that leaves him with brain damage and strange visions. A madness that sends him on a cross-country odyssey of debauchery and pain. Again, we have Koja's unique and poetic writing style. It's incredibly evocative, and yeah, this one is also weird and dark and disturbing. And I love reading stories, especially horror stories about artists. So yeah, this one was just my cup of tea. This one doesn't seem to get nearly as much attention or praise as The Cipher, but I think it is absolutely just as good. I loved it, and again, would highly recommend anyone to check it out if it sounds interesting to you. Okay, and last up from the ones I have read so far is Stitch by Mark Morris, which was published in 1991. The evil Stitch preys upon young and vulnerable college students by helping them shed their old lives and insecurities and plunge into a world beyond the realms of books and grades. So here we're following a student called Dan, who is like a nerdy guy, and he meets this character of Stitch, and he becomes transformed into a very charismatic guy, and he ends up starting this group at the university where the story is set, gains a lot of followers, and yeah, some sinister things are starting to happen. And we're actually mainly following a couple of other characters who are witnessing these strange things happening and are trying to figure out what is going on and how to put a stop to it before something terrible happens. This is another dark one. Yeah, it does have some disturbing and gruesome scenes which were really well written. This is set in a British university, so I loved that setting, and it has, yeah, a lot of really great characters here. Stitch is, yeah, definitely an interesting villain type character, and yeah, everything kind of culminates into something pretty wild. I also read Toady by this author a couple of years ago, which I also loved. So yeah, he's an amazing author and I need to read more by him as well. But yeah, this is definitely one I would highly recommend. So those are the 11 books that I've read so far. I do own one more, which is California Gothic by Dennis Etchison. And I was wondering whether I should read this one as well before making this video, but I've already read 2 of his books this year, and one of them was Shadowman, which I literally just read a few days ago. So I was like, I'll save this one for another time. I just want to make the video now. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know which Dell Abyss books you have read and would recommend, because I definitely need to track more of them down. Yeah, like I said, I only own one more so far that I haven't yet read, so I need to get more Dell Abyss in my life. Hopefully that was interesting and or helpful for you, and I hope that if you check any of these out that you enjoy them just as much as I did. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!